people, welcome to Blue UK Jazz Dance. Welcome to my project Rebirth of the Cool, Volume 1, dedicated 100% to my legacy. And as I said, my legacy of leadership is the legacy of other people's leadership. I'm going to give you an update. It's 2017. I started this project in 1998 and it evolved organically itself. It started in 1986, after a magazine article that I read called Rebirth of the Cool. That's where it first came from, individuals. And it was an article, basically, it was the Face magazine, and they had an article on UK Jazz Dance, and basically it was Fashion Extra, the magazine. And I was very disheartened that, guess what, Manchester fashion was not in this book, the dancers, because Manchester in 1980 was the #1 fashion city in the world, the #1 popular culture city in the world, and yet we were represented in the #1 magazine throughout the UK called The Face with a Fashion Extra. It had key dancers in it, IDJ was in it, and they were put forward as the fashion gurus or the key people that are making a fashion statement back to do with jazz in 1986. Basically, they started to wear jazz fashion as part of a trend. And for us in Manchester and other places, it was done as a statement, and we started to wear it from a long time ago. So part of that was a disheartening thing. I didn't think it was not unfair that they were represented, because they did, they wore jazz clothes. But they were the individuals that really started it, and they wore it for a fad. It's important for people to understand as part of commercial development of them as dancers, and I've got nothing against that. I'm very much a dancer who believes in fairness. I'm from the north of England, and one of the key things why I did the project was basically I wanted to give people an insight that there was a culture, and what happened was to break the stereotypes around the culture. Western privilege had spread historically that West Indian culture was egotistical, it was fad, it was insignificant. Anything they did within their culture had no role and purpose, and if it had the role, basically, if it did have a role, the role was one that was inferior, and that was unacceptable to me. A new and alternative UK jazz dance culture was created by African Caribbeans, a culture that spread across the world, and Western privilege dehumanized it. And in 1986 it got dehumanized in a film called Absolute Beginners, and it was dehumanized in the Face magazine. That's simply as it is. When you don't have a true representation of the individuals who are involved in UK jazz dance, then from that point of view you're devaluing it. You're not showing it with respect, integrity, service and excellence. What I do, part of my legacy, my involvement in UK jazz dance, which is now 43 years as the longest dancer in Manchester, I as an individual have shown respect, integrity, service and excellence. Twice I went back into higher education with the strict purpose to raise the writing, the thinking, the developing, the storytelling on my art form. Twice I went back into higher education. One in 89, 91, Bedford, Higher Education College, where I did dance performance certificate in jazz, ballet and contemporary, where I did a first year BA in contemporary music, dance, drama and film, where I did a foundation to sports and dance teacher training, if you understand, right, to underpin my many years as a professional. That's the reason I went there, so I could be an authoritative voice. Because one of the key things is, as an individual, you know that basically if you have qualifications around dance, music, etc., drama, it helps you when you start to speak on it. People don't just see you as a layperson. I recently, in 2013, I was awarded a European Arts Management, Administration and Business Management Diploma, and that was after working 30 years as an arts manager, administrator and business manager myself, doing a wide range of projects underground, very much from a business management perspective. Do you understand? I wanted to talk about UK jazz dance from a business management perspective, from an arts management and arts administration perspective, because I started to do research. I got honours in research with that diploma, I got honours in arts and community, and I got honours in careers and employability. And it's in these areas I wanted to really develop my research and to share with individuals around the world that this art form created employability for individuals directly within the creative culture industries and outside the creative culture industries. I can tell you that from individuals engaged in it, and there's many different groups. I can talk about jazz defectors, I can talk about brothers in jazz, I can talk about IDJ, foot patrol, floor technician, do you understand? And other groups, my own group, Body Function, Juba Jazz Dance Projects. I created at least 40 projects myself around the involvement, being involved in UK jazz dance through its careers and employability skills that it gave me. And part of my legacy today, I'm sharing that with you today is one of the key things. Now, one of the key things I want to share with people, after 43 years, there's no authoritative information on UK jazz dance. You have to take it as my word. There's books been written, essays, they're not authoritative. They're not authoritative because they miss out the cultural heritage. They've identified African Caribbeans, which I am, but I'm dual heritage. My dad's Jamaican and mum's Grenadian. They're two different cultures. And what's happened, everybody who's wrote on UK jazz dance, imagine this is a pot. Individuals wrote in UK jazz dance, imagining all the cultures are in one pot. So the pioneers have been spoken on as though they're the same people, they come from the same culture. So imagine that's the pot. And all the pioneers, boom, have been identified as the same people, with the same value system, the same cultural heritage. No, they're not. People need to understand that. What's happened, that white privilege, I've been 99.9.5% the writers on us, have not identified that we have a cultural heritage. That's one. The second thing they've not identified is this. 0 to 6 years, 80% of our formative learning takes place then. That is where we learn to dance to jazz. Not in 1975. From the womb, we were dancing to jazz, 50s and 60s born. African Caribbeans are the key individuals where the pioneers come from. Their parents, what people don't understand, many of their parents were avant-garde dancers themselves, musicians, people who are into the art. Call them artisans, call them creative cultural leaders, people who are movers and shakers, steel pan players, saxophone players, double bass, trumpet, piano, dancers, singers into their cultural heritage dance and derivative dances that were created in the United States and wider countries. Not been acknowledged. It's like all of a sudden, out of the blue, African Caribbean young people, 50s and 60s born, created this dance. They never did. What you have to understand, dances follow a history, don't they? So 30s movements became developments in 40s movement. 40s movements became developments in 50s movements. 50s movements came development in 60s. 60s movement came development in 70s. 70s movement came development in 80s. Have you understand that? So what happens, that basically all cultures, dances evolves from history. It evolves. So if you want to know anything about the dance, you have to go back into the cultural heritage to understand the beginning. We don't have that. There's no writing that does that. I'm the first individual who's going to talk on himself as a pioneer and then get to give you understanding, do you understand, of my journey. Obviously, what's my DNA? Is African. Now, my dad comes from a certain place, mum comes from, they don't know where they come from. But I can tell you one thing, that my dad is Jamaican, my mum's Grenadian. My dad comes from Jamaica, which is up here, my mum's from Grenada here. North and south. Have you got that? Right. Grenada very much influenced by Trinidad, which is just down here at the bottom, and my dad very much influenced by Cuba. My granddad worked in Cuba, and my granddaddy spoke Spanish. My granddaddy did boxing. My granddaddy did rumba. Do you understand? He knew a lot about Cuban culture. Do you understand? And he obviously knew about Jamaican culture. My father was in America for 55 to 61. Why am I giving that stories? These are part of the story of culture to give you an understanding. How did I come to pioneer my own dancing? Was because I had certain influences within the DNA memory, and influences from my father, my mom. She brought her own energy. So my mom's family, they dance differently. They listen to different types of music. My dad's family dance differently and listen to different types of music. I was born in 1964. In 1964, very few Jamaican and Grenadian children were born, because generally when people migrated to Britain in the 50s and 60s, they stayed together. Have you got that? It's important that you understand that. I'm one of a few individuals of different cultures to be born in 1964 of Jamaican and Grenadian heritage. This is what authoritative knowledge is. Authoritative knowledge gives you understanding of the political, economic, technological, environmental, legal, social, physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, spiritual understanding, integrated knowledge. I reeled off many things there. There's no book that gives you that. There's no essay that's ever written on that. Do you understand? You have to have that knowledge. You have to research that knowledge, and that's what I'm saying. This is the 43rd year of my commitment to UK jazz dance. Now, what is part of my legacy? I'm the longest dancer in the history of Manchester by far. That's it. One of the longest dancers in the history of the UK, still pushing the boundaries of my dancing. Many people have stopped pushing the boundaries of the dancing, reflecting respect, integrity, service and excellence to the art form. Why? Because it's my ancestors' steps. My ancestors brought me into this world to develop my art form, pushing the boundaries of its development. That's what you're supposed to do. Because the art form teaches you creativity. The art form teaches you musicality. The art form teaches you leadership skills. The art form teaches you to develop your social, physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, spiritual intelligence. The art form's holistic. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm looking for papers here where I wrote some notes down to give me a deeper understanding. The art form is there for you to get self-actualization, to find out who are you, what are you, where you come from, what are you good at, what you're not good at. The art form is there to get self-knowledge. The art form is there to get self-awareness about yourself, socially, physically, intellectually, culturally, emotionally, spiritually. The art form was there. It has a role and function. Guess to who first? African Caribbeans. The problem that we've had, people that acknowledge who was the dance form created for and why was it created. It was created through the circumstances that we were facing. We were being oppressed as a culture. Our cultural freedom was taken away. When that happens, what happens, each culture creates a counterculture, an alternative subculture, yeah, for them to breathe. Do you understand? To share their self-expressions. Well, what happened in Britain, Britain was trying to stifle our culture and did stifle it, and then we had to break out of it. Do you understand? 50s and 60s born can tell you about that. I can tell you about that. So I talk about my experiences of being at school. We didn't have no knowledge on my culture at school. We were told that my culture is inferior. My culture is a nothing culture. You have to understand, when we were growing up, 1958 to 78, with the black and white minstrel show, that was the #1 show on telly. The #1 record sales were minstrel shows. That was the society we live in. I'm walking down the street and called a gollywog. What's happened, when you write on a person's culture, you tell people the climate and the conditions in which this art form's created. If people got that, it's important. You don't have that. What we've had is a glamorized perspective written on UK jazz dance. They haven't told you the truth. The foundations of this art form, the foundation was based on racism. Is Blue was facing racism, facing inequalities and his family, discriminations, marginalization, defranchisement, and we had to find a way through our dress as a statement, through our dance as a statement, as our music as a statement. That's why I've come back. Because what happened is, Western privilege had fed to the world. Our fashion was a trend. Our dance was a trend. Our music was a trend. It was not. It was a statement of our respect, integrity, service and excellence through who we were. It was a statement of our dignity and honor of our ancestors. Our ancestors gave us steps to develop our social dances. That's what we came for. Western privilege was saying it's nothing, you can throw it away. No, you can't. Now, I've come back because a disservice has been done to Manchester's history. A disservice has been done to African diaspora people in general. Our art form got killed off. Nobody is dancing UK jazz dance besides me in Manchester. Many people in the north of England stopped dancing. Now what's happened, my art is recognized as a freestyle art form. To show you freestyle art, what it does is beneficial for your health, your well-being, your healing, your happiness. It helps you stop Alzheimer's. It helps you with Parkinson's disease. It helps you with a wide range of diseases. Do you understand? Right. What's happened is we stopped doing it. Why? Because Western privilege told individuals that the dance was a fad. it was insignificant, so nobody did any research on it. But you can throw that dance away. But think about it, Western dances are still around. The most important thing, African Caribbean dances have been lost. Look at the mental health record. Look at our health record. From north to south to east to west, we're dying earlier than our parents. You know why? Because we stopped dancing. There's a sin that's been done. And with Blue UK Jazz Dance, I'm just giving you insight. What I want to say, if I don't talk about my legacy of leadership, who will? If I don't share it with you in photographs, in video, in text, or orally, how will you know what I've done? 99.9.5% of all the writing has been done by Europeans, by Western privilege, who don't have respect, don't write us with respect, integrity, service, and excellence. I tell you that straight up. Do you understand? The writing from a commercial perspective is about money, because this is an industry. You're in the creative culture industries, and I have a legacy to show. Look at the history of jazz musicians, how they got exploited, female and male. The dancers and the musicians. Look at the history. We danced in the spirit of jazz, those in the UK. We went through this exactly same thing till our culture was killed off. Lindy Hop was killed off, Tap was killed off, Charleston was killed off. Boom. And then what happened was the dancers then were appropriated into Western institutions where blacks could not teach it because they weren't allowed to be there. Think about what I'm saying. Same what's happened here today. UK jazz dance has been appropriated into Western society. We don't have full-time teachers, we don't have a full-time qualification. It's important for people to understand that you must stand up with respect and integrity and service and excellence for what you do. You must as an individual show dignity, and part of my dignity was creating this project. And part of the project was about me as an individual, sharing with the individuals that my father, who's dyslexic, boom, I followed in his footsteps. I'm the only person who followed art. My dad's really into that. My mum's into design also. But I followed in my father's footsteps. He's dyslexic. And I want to show people the practice I used as a child, or now, came from my father. Do you understand? And my own son, he himself, he has little special education needs. All of us use the arts as a way to cope, manage and overcome. So to show you that art teaches you the ability to be creative, to problem solve. And that was part of the project I wanted to share with the world. That the dance, the number one dance I have done, the number one dance I've done as an art form is UK jazz dance. And it had a whole host of benefits. What were the benefits for me as a person undiagnosed with dyslexia, undiagnosed with asthma, undiagnosed with visual stress and psychosomatic illnesses over 40 years? The benefits, the art form kept me in health and well-being. It healed me of trauma, of bullying, violent racial bullying, jealousy bullying, boom, in my life. Do you understand? And it's important that people understand that it has a healing quality. It's holistic. It's an art form that reduces stress and anxiety in one. It's an art form that enables you to explore your trauma in life through the art. And if you do it long enough, you'll start to find that the trauma starts to dissipate. It lessens itself. I used it as an individual. Recently, I've had blood poisoning, seal poisoning back to back. 2010, 2013, life-threatening illnesses I had. And what saved me, and what has saved me, is my involvement in UK jazz dance, because the first thing that I did, basically live improvisational performance, on the stage, off the stage, in the streets, anywhere, I did it. And what it done, it enabled me to reduce the stress of the illness, the agitation of the illness, to keep me positive, to keep me hopeful and optimistic. And I'm the first individual to share that information with you, as well as the fact, back in 1981, I created a mission statement, and that mission statement was to promote the positive images and energy of my African cultural heritage, arts and wider uses. Why? Because what happened was, in society, the Western society dehumanized us, and it made us feel confident about who we were. When you're feeling confident, what that does, it reduces your health. So I recognized as a child, I've been dancing all my life, being self-expressive, creative through my cultural dance forms, and I realized that it gave me a benefit. I've been working with a teacher called Sir Roy Blackman from the age of 8 years old, and identified to him, boom, I want to share with individuals, this is at the age of 16 now, I want to share with individuals. My success today is being with you as my coach, but also through me involved in my cultural heritage art form, which was UK jazz dance at the time, because I pioneered it at the age of 10. And then I pioneered, it was jazz funk, then it came to be, boom, jazz fusion, do you understand? Then it evolved to me involved in other dance forms, do you know what I'm saying, later on, other freestyle dance forms. Anyway, Blue UK Jazz Dance, giving you insight. If I don't talk about my legacy of leadership, who will? Nobody will. It's important that we leave legacy for the next generation of individuals. If you respect your culture, if you have integrity for your culture, if you want to show service for your culture, and you want to show excellence for your culture, you do what I'm doing, because the service and excellence I'm doing is finding a very constructive way where people can reflect over and over again about what I'm saying, go and do research for themselves, see the diversity of ways I've included. So I've put photographs on my Facebook, I put video on my Facebook, I put text on my Facebook, and I'm going to put more information up for individuals. Now I'm doing oral history. If you look on the web, you'll find out there's one individual who's providing what is called dance appreciation knowledge on the web. Nobody in the history of 40 years has provided as much dance appreciation knowledge, which is of authoritative nature. As I said, 0 to 6 years is when 50s and 60s born started to dance to jazz. That's when I first started to dance to jazz. It's not when I heard jazz funk. And there's been a fallacy, there's been a distorted history, because Western privilege identified that we started to dance to jazz, boom, at the age when jazz funk came about. That's a total impossibility. If you know anything about black people's music, Blue UK Jazz Dance out, take it easy. Please.